What if? What if things don't work out just like we've always believed? Hi, I'm Kathy Ann. Let's be Berean. People can be confusing. Recently, I got a puppy. Cutest little tail wagger. I named her Abby. I bought her from a young man named Dustin who told me the pups were born in September. But when I drove over to pick her up, the papers I got indicated Abby was actually born in August. Guess that's not a big deal when it's a dog. I have a precious new grandson also born in September. What a difference if Braden had been actually born in August. By now, he'd no doubt have teeth. My daughter-in-law told me something I didn't know. Rebecca said it is common with horses that no matter what the actual birth time was, many horse owners give the same birth date to all their colts born that season. Who knew? Not only can people be confusing, but so are calendars. School year, fiscal year, the Chinese. Who knows? Is this the year of the dog, the horse, the rat? We're going to dive right into the Jewish calendar today because the next possible timing of the rapture this session is going to deal with the 7 feasts of God in Leviticus 23, the Feast of Trumpets in particular. This is the Jewish year 5777. It will change to 5778 as it does every year on the Feast of Trumpets. This year, that will be September 22nd, 2017. Sounds simple. It's called the civil calendar. It has been in use from the start of Genesis. You can see on your screen the names of the months in order. Tishri being the first month and Elul the last month. So this year, 2017, September 21st will be the last day of Elul in the year 5777, and September 22nd will be the first day of Tishri in the year 5778. How hard is that to understand? But hold on, God changed everything. As the Israelites were coming out of Egypt, God established what is called the religious calendar. Exodus 12:2 says, "This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you." Exodus 13:4 calls that month Aviv, which now also goes by the name Nisan. So on the religious calendar, Nisan is the first month and Adar is the last month. I placed on the screen the two calendars side by side. Where it really starts getting confusing for me is that the first month, Nisan, is not at the start of the year. It's still Tishri. Who does that? You'll be happy to know that on the Gregorian calendar, when we changed from 2017 to 2018, January will also be the first month of the new year. Who changes years in the 7th month? I'm not even going to get into that some years have 12 months and some years get 13 months, with the 13th month being called Adar too. But God had a reason for starting the months in Nisan. The timing of the 7 feasts in Leviticus 23 shows the plan of redemption. Subscribers can find that in the PDF associated with this session. There are 2 words in Leviticus 23 that simply get translated in English into the word feast. Those words are moed and hog. Moed is the word used in Leviticus 23:2, which says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts." The plural is moedim. That's the plural of moed. The word moed means an appointment, a fixed time or season, an assembly, an appointed time, a set time or an exact time. God has set times. Galatians 4:2 and 4 says, "But is under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the Father. But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law. Acts 17:31 says, because he hath appointed a day in the which he will judge the world in righteousness by that man who he hath ordained, whereof he hath given assurance unto all men, in that he hath raised him from the dead. The word for feast used in Leviticus 23:6 is Hag. It says, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. Hagag means to move in a circle, to celebrate, to hold a solemn feast or holiday. So God instructed festivals to be held at an appointed time year after year. Let me be clear. These festivals teach about redemption. Celebrating these festivals do not give redemption. Salvation only comes by faith in the substitutionary work of the Son of God on the cross. The Feast of Trumpets is known by several names. Most people know it as Rosh Hashanah. Rosh means head, and Shana means year. So it means the head of the year. As we have already noted, it is New Year's Day. Of the 7 feasts of Leviticus 23, this is the only one that occurs on the first day of the month, that being Tishri 1. Since knowing which day the new month begins relies on the sighting of the first slither of the new moon, it became difficult to let those Jews living far away know in time that the new year had begun. So it became the practice to celebrate the Feast of Trumpets for 2 days. The rabbis regarded it as a Yama Akirita, one long day. Perhaps the most significant name for the Feast of Trumpets for our purpose of establishing a doctrine for the timing of the rapture is the name Yom Teruah. Teruah means an awakening blast. Teruah also is translated as shout. Let's read Leviticus 23:23 through 25. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, in the first day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. The instruction is the blowing of the trumpet. In the Bible, we find 2 types of trumpets, the silver trumpet and the shofar or ram's horn. Moses was instructed by God to have 2 silver trumpets made. Numbers 10:1 through 10 says, And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Make thee 2 trumpets of silver, of a whole piece shalt thou make them, and thou mayest use them for the calling of the assembly, and for the journeying of the camps. And when they shall blow with them, all the assembly shall assemble themselves to thee at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And if they blow but with 1 trumpet, then the princes, which are the heads of the thousands of Israel, shall gather themselves unto thee. When ye blow an alarm, then the camp that lieth on the east part shall go forward. When ye blow an alarm the 2nd time, then the camps that lie on the south side shall take their journey. They shall blow an alarm for their journeys. But when the congregation is to be gathered together, ye shall blow, but ye shall not sound an alarm. The sons of Aaron, the priests, shall blow with the trumpets, and they shall be to you for an ordinance forever throughout your generations. And if ye go to war in your land against the enemy that oppresses you, then ye shall blow an alarm with trumpets, and ye shall be remembered before the Lord your God, and ye shall be saved from your enemies. Also in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginning of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings, and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before the Lord your God, for I am the Lord your God. Verse 10 says that among other times, these trumpets were to be blown at the time of the new moon. The Feast of Trumpet falls on Tishri 1, a new moon. Blow the trumpet. Numbers 29, 1 through 6 also calls the first day of the 7th month a blowing of the trumpets. And in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, ye shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work. It is a day of blowing of trumpets unto you. And ye shall offer a burnt offering for a sweet savor unto the Lord. 1 young bullock, 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without blemish, and their meat offering shall be mixed with flour mingled with oil, 3/10 deal for a bullock, and 2/10 deal for a ram, and 1/10 deal for a lamb throughout the 7 lambs, and 1 kid of the goat for a sin offering, to make an atonement for you, besides the burnt offering of the month, and his meal offering, and the daily burnt offering, and his meat offering, and their drink offerings, according unto the manner for a sweet savor, a sacrifice made by fire unto the Lord. The rabbis teach that what is important is to hear the shofar being blown, not actually blowing it yourself. Remember, we are studying all possible times God may have picked for the timing of the rapture. I know you're way ahead of me on this one, but just let me say it anyway. Many people believe that the timing of the rapture will be on some future Feast of Trumpets. If the rapture is on the Feast of Trumpets this year, that will be September 22nd, 2017. This one is definitely on my maybe list. Thanks for the maybe list concept, Jerry, and thanks again for giving me my own maybe t-shirt. It's easy to see why so many people expect the timing of the rapture to be on some Feast of Trumpets. God is using the 7 feasts to explain redemption. The first 4 feasts were fulfilled on those exact dates. So why not expect the last 3 feasts to also be fulfilled on those same exact dates? So what is the fulfillment of the Feast of Trumpets? Let's say it together. The blowing of the shofar is to proclaim the resurrection of the dead. In 1 Corinthians 15:52, we are told that the resurrection of the dead will be at the last trump. Let's just read that section again. 1 Corinthians 15:51 through 57. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this incorruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal shall put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, which giveth the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Don't be confused into thinking that this last trump could possibly be the voice of the 7th angel in Revelation 11:15. When the Apostle Paul wrote to the Corinthians, John had not yet written and distributed his letters to the 7 churches, so that the Corinthians were not thinking about the 7 trumpet judgments of Revelation. They were thinking about the 3 trumpets they already knew about in the 1st century, the first trump, the last trump, and the great trump. The first trump is blown on Shavuot, Pentecost. God had it blown at Mount Sinai. Exodus 19:19 says, And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. The great trumpet is blown on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, as it looks forward to his second coming. But our focus today is on the last trump. Matthew 24:31 says, "And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heaven to the other." But the last trump is blown on Tishri 1. This date has yet another name. Let's review. Remember, Tishri 1 is also known of as Rosh Hashanah, which means the head of the year, so it is the New Year's Day, the start of the civil calendar. Second, Tishri 1 is known as Yom Teruah, the day of the awakening blast, signifying the resurrection of the dead. And thirdly, Tishri 1 is the date of the blowing of the last trumpet. The last name for Tishri 1 that we are going to consider in this session is Yom HaKesh, the hidden day. The word can be spelled K-E-S-E-H or sometimes spelled K-E-C-E-H, comes from the Hebrew root spelled K-A-C-A-H. It means to conceal, cover, or hide. Every first century Jew knew that of the 7 feasts of God in Leviticus 23, this fourth feast was the only one in which the date was uncertain, since it fell on a new moon. So that date was concealed until the sighting of the first slither of the new moon. So Jews seldom called it Rosh Hashanah or Yom Teruah. They referred to it by an idiom. We in America often use an idiom when referring to Thanksgiving. Instead of saying Thanksgiving Day, we call it Turkey Day. Everyone knows what we're talking about. It was the same way with the first century Jews. They called Tishri 1 the day and the hour no one knows. Isn't it ironic that when the Lord said in Matthew 24:36, "But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels in heaven, but my Father only," some believers today try to use those very words to promote the imminent return theory. Every first century Jew knew that was an idiom. Believers understood Tishri 1 to be the only day of the year known as the hidden day, or the day that no man knew. Let's take stock of where we are so far. Remember, our goal is to establish a doctrine for the second coming and the timing of the rapture. Last session, we looked at the 9th of Av, August 2nd this year, 2017. God has promised to turn our mourning into joy. We particularly looked at Jeremiah 31. We saw the unique timing of the destruction of both temples on the very same date. The mourning over the destruction extended beyond the loss of the buildings. The temple was the focal point of worship and represented the very presence of God on earth. We recalled that we are the temple of God. Titus 2:13 says that our blessed hope is his return to us and for us. That will definitely be turning our mourning into joy. But to the contrary, some people believe our mourning could just as easily be turned to joy with the construction of the third temple, perhaps using the blueprints given in the book of Ezekiel. Today, we looked at the fourth of the 7 feasts of God listed in Leviticus 23. God orders events at his timing. We looked at the names for this date, particularly Yom Teruah, the day of the awakening blast, and how that relates to the resurrection of the dead, and also the name Yom HaKesh, the hidden day, and how first century believers understood that of the 3 trumps, it was the last trump blown on Tishri 1, and that the phrase, "the day and hour that no one knows," is a Hebrew idiom. Next time, well, you can get a head start by reading Psalms 83. Remember, what if? What if things don't work out just like we've always believed? I'm Kathy Ann. Be blessed.